The Holy Gospel according to Mark, the first chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her at once. He came, took her by the hand, and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening, after sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. The whole city was gathered around the door, and he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he cast out many demons. But he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up, went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. Simon and his companions hunted him down. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." And he answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Christ. Labels are an everyday part of our life, aren't they? Now, they can be helpful, telling us what something is when we cannot see for ourselves. This is a can of peaches, that is a can of tomato soup. Any of you ever had that problem? You lose the labels in your suddenly it's, well, surprise for dinner tonight. Labels can also be confusing. Have you ever tried to get any real information off the label on the side of a cereal box? They can also be misleading. What's the difference between all natural, organic, and certified organic? But we label things to help us begin to understand something or someone, to begin to define who and what they are. And in this way, labels are helpful as a pathway to begin to understand someone or something. They came from Minnesota. He's a retired farmer. She's a retired teacher. Now the problem comes when we take those labels and we take those broad strokes of a definition and turn it into the entire picture of who that person is. And when we allow our own perception of what those labels mean to block our ability to truly see a person. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, makes use of some labels, doesn't he? Jews, those under the law, those outside the law, the weak. Now he says he's become all things to all people so that he might win more of them for the gospel. But has he? Does he always do well relating to all those who fall into one of those various categories? Is he defining real categories of people, or is he engaging in labeling, hiding their true identity? Or, as someone suggested at our Wednesday evening service, is his ability, his willingness to become that label that is used to define them, pointing out that those labels have absolutely no bearing on what it means to become a follower of Christ? That regardless of whether you are labeled as Jew, under the law, outside the law, or weak, this good news of God in Jesus Christ is for you. Now, I have to admit, I'm of two minds about words and labeling. I had a colleague, Pastor K. Slocum at First Lutheran Church, who would object when someone would say, "You made me feel." Her response was, "No. You get to control your response to what is said to and about you. Those are just words. If they fit you, fine. If they don't, ignore it. They have no power over you." It's the old sticks and stones argument. And I have some sympathy for that. We do have some agency. However, if I call someone a cyclone, In a room full of rabid Hawkeye fans, whether they are or not, that person is liable to get some unwelcome attention, aren't they? My labeling forces them to respond. Hey, I'm not really a Cyclone fan, to which the return might be, well, yeah, wouldn't a true Cyclone fan say the same thing in this circumstance? My label has affected their relationship with those around them. Words have power. And despite what the old saw says, I think all of us can attest that words can hurt. They also hurt because they take a three-dimensional person created by God in God's own image and make them into a two-dimensional thing. Labels do this, don't they? You're fat, you're ugly, you're beautiful, you're thin, you're liberal or conservative, you're stupid, ignorant, unpatriotic, fascist. These labels obscure others, hide them from our sight so that we cannot see them. And this is sin, brothers and sisters. To deny the image of God in each other is sin. To use words to make each other into something less than a wonderfully made, three-dimensional human being with a unique and complex history. To deny this is akin to killing them in our hearts, and Jesus says that that is the same as if we had actually killed them. See, the only label that matters is the one given to us by God, who says, "You are created in my image, and you are very good." This is the reality of who we are. Beloved by God, created in the image of God. These are the words that open our eyes and the eyes of those around us to the reality of who we are. The three-dimensionality and complexity of who we are. The value that is inherent in each of us. The respect that is due one another for this reason alone. This is the power of what Jesus does in our reading from the Gospel of Mark. For those he heals has been labeled. The man with the unclean spirit last week in the synagogue. Those who are being healed this week, having the demons cast out, all of these have been kept from fully participating in community because of their afflictions. They were labeled as sinners, unclean, those unable to be with those who are ritually clean and righteous. In casting out these demons and healing them, Jesus restores them to community and shows that the reality lies not in those labels, demoniac, unclean, diseased, but in who they are as ones restored to wholeness by God. And we too are restored to wholeness by God, aren't we? For demons live in our lives. The green-eyed monster of envy and greed, the fire of jealousy, the oppressive weight of an eating disorder or abuse. We too are unclean, aren't we? Afflicted with a desire to be better than others, to have power over others. We indulge in all those isms that seek to separate us. Classism, sexism, racism. But like the whole town that gathers in front of Simon's door, we know that in Jesus we can find healing. And so we come. And we gather together around this door and around this font and around this table to be reminded of the truth that we are all worthy of God's love. That our unity is greater than anything that can seek to divide us. We gather to be healed of all that afflicts us. To have those demons that torment us cast out, to be forgiven where we have sinned against God or against each other, to be washed clean by the waters of baptism and fed with the bread and wine that offers forgiveness of sins, strengthening in faith. We come. to be reminded that we are all one body. A body which needs every member to function well. Now we receive new members today into this body. Thalikers at the first service. Steve and Sue at this service. And there are things that we can say about them, labels that can, in a good way, give us a sense of who they are. But all we really need to know is that they, too, are created in the image of God. Child of God, claimed like us in the waters of baptism. And to know that in their joining us, we are better equipped as the body of Christ to go into the world as salt and light, and bring forth God's kingdom of mercy, peace, and justice. A kingdom where we see each other clearly. Child of God, created in the image of God. A kingdom guided by this sight, with no labels. Thanks be to God.